Right now, the housing market feels like a Western standoff. You've got buyers on one side and you have sellers on the other. And the buyers are staring down at affordability, and the sellers are wanting their home price values to stay as high as possible. And then in the middle, we've got expectations. And what's happening is both sides are kind of stuck, and they're just staring each other down, waiting to see which one is going to move first. Is it going to be affordability, or is it going to be home prices? And I think one or the other is going to have to change. It's either going to have to change and everything become just a little bit more affordable, or we're going to have to see home prices drop, which will make it more affordable. But to me, all the talk has been about interest rates, and I don't think that's the whole thing. I think a lot of it is about expectations of sellers and expectations of buyers. So let's talk about how did this come into play in August numbers, because the numbers were just released. Are you ready? All right, so in Cartersville, we had 251 active listings in Cartersville for the month. Now, what that would tell us is 7% higher than last year. And across all of Bartow County, there's 445 active listings, which is 26% higher than last year. So buyers do have more choices than they've had in a long time. But here's the catch. Listings actually dipped a little bit from the month before. We're down about 5%. So we are seeing some sellers say, I'm just going to keep my house. I'm just going to hang on to it. And that could have bigger impacts going forward and make it a little bit of a bumpy, slow fall. Now let's talk about prices, because this was interesting to me. Like, I had to go back and double check this one, because the median list price in Cartersville for August was $413 compared to $375. So people are listing their houses for more. So that $375 is from last year. That's a pretty big jump if you think about it. It's like $38,000, so 10%. Now, across Bartow County, the story was very similar. Prices holding firm, sellers steady in their expectation. The median sales price across all of Bartow County was $368 in August. So that's up from $340 in July. So once again, we saw that bump. That is list price. And I think that's where there's always a little bit of confusion. You'll see houses being listed, but it doesn't mean that they're selling for that. So let's talk about that next. What are they selling for compared to what they're listed for? Okay, before we do that, let's just talk about how buyers are feeling about this. There's a lot of hesitation. They're looking at these new houses coming on the market, and they're just hesitating because they know that if something doesn't change on affordability, insurance is going up, taxes are going up, that when they lock in that payment, they're locking in the payment for 30 years on principal and interest, but they're not locking in homeowners insurance, and they're not locking in property taxes. So they making them a little bit nervous. Now, the days on market are up 48% from last year. And if you have your house up for sale, or you're a real estate agent like me, you feel that, because it's just slow going. Now, what that means is that slowing down, that 48% more days on market, it's just causing less houses to close. And we're really looking at this year being a super low year historically for houses to actually sell in Bartow County. So, you know, if you have your house up for sale, there's two sides of it. Houses close every day, and we see houses go under contract every week, thank goodness. But it does feel like it's taking a long time. So how many houses did close last month? So in Cartersville, just 64 closings in August. So that means that the city had to be Cartersville, and 64, that seems like such a small amount considering how many houses that we have for sale and how many people. So let's take a breath and say, well, how many houses sold in all of Bartow County? So all over Bartow County, 112 houses sold. So we're down If you look at Cartersville, that's 14%. If you look across Bartow, that's 8% from month to month. So you're going to feel those days on market as we go through. Now, some of it's seasonal. It's always a little bit slower in the wintertime and fall and weather and all that. But I really do think it's that, what are buyers expecting? What are sellers expecting? And then what is the media telling us? And I think that's just making, shall we say, a mix. And it's just very confusing to people. I want to kind of tell you a story from my own life, because I think sometimes a story kind of can illustrate things for us. So when me and Chad first moved to Bartow County, we were renting. We were renting a little house. It was pretty new construction. I can't remember the subdivision. That's terrible, but I remember it was just right over in Cartersville. So when we decided to buy a house in Cartersville, we didn't have Zillow. We didn't have social media. So when we got pre-approved and they said, you can afford this much house, we told the real estate agent, great, what are our choices? And he said, well, you've got new construction, because they were building Walden Glen. Can you imagine? That's how many decades ago it's been. But they were building Walden Glen, or there were like 4 or 5 houses in our price point in the area that we wanted to be at, because Chad needed to be easy access to I-75, so we wanted Cartersville. So we went and looked at the new construction. It was beautiful. The houses were brand new, but the house felt small to me because we had those 3 little kids, and I couldn't imagine being in that small of a house with them. I was a stay-at-home mom. So I really wanted something with a bigger yard and more house for us to spread out. So when we looked at the resale houses, one in particular was a 2-story, and I'm showing you a picture of it. This is literally the listing photo from when we sold it, not from when we bought it, but when we sold it. So it had 2 living rooms. So when you walked in the front door, it was that old style with a formal living room. And then there was another living room with a fireplace, a little room that could have been, I really don't know what it was. We used it like a playroom, and then a full bath, and then the kitchen and dining room and laundry area. And then you went upstairs and you had 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. So for us, that was way better. But here's the caveat on that. The inside was a disaster, y'all. A disaster. So like somebody had got the bright idea to do that paint where you paint 2 colors on top of each other, and they picked a really, really, really dark gray, and then they put another color of gray on it, and it really just looked like a horror movie. And the cabinets were a mess. Like really on the inside, there was nothing that made me go, ooh, I love this house. But I wanted the square footage and I wanted the level yard. It took us about 3 years to get it fixed. Now, why am I telling you this long story? Because my expectations were lower because I didn't have so many choices. Because I feel like we're going on Zillow and going on Zillow, and we're going on my website, and we're just looking at all these houses on social media. So we see this kitchen and we love that kitchen, and look at that fire pit. And then we look at what we can actually afford and we go, I don't like that. And I think for a lot of people, they're going to miss out on that vehicle that helps you build wealth, because they're living in, I don't want to say a dream, but they're looking at houses that should be a dream at their stage of life, instead of looking at what can I afford. We have a past client who she doesn't know I'm recording this video, and I'm not going to say her name, but like she bought a property in her price point, and since she's owned it, she's just remodeled and remodeled. She's doing the kitchen right now. And every time I see it on her stories, I'm just always so proud of her, because she's changing her house to make it what she wants, but she's not paying rent, and she's building that wealth. So I think some of it is getting buyers to realize you don't want to miss out on this vehicle that can really impact your future just because you're scrolling too much. Listen, those dreams are there for a reason, but you've got to buy what you can in reality. Like if I look at too many houses online now, my house is still not what I dream of, but it's the house I can afford currently. So keep that in mind. That's what you call a little bit of a soapbox. Little bit of a soapbox. Okay, so let's see if we can bring this back. So in every Western standoff, somebody has to make the first move. And whether it's going to be affordability or whether it's going to be prices with sellers, I'm not for sure which way it's going to go, because there are going to be sellers that decide they need to sell, want to sell, ready to move on. And then there's a lot of things that could impact affordability. But if you're in this middle time, I want you to really think, am I missing out on having a home I own just because of what I'm wanting versus what I can afford? And that's it. If you want to have a conversation about it and debate about it, you got my phone number. I'd love to talk to you.